Hey everyone, welcome back to another Roman Reacts. We're here today to watch another video for you. This is another Wizards and Warriors video, and we're continuing on with the Black Crusades series. So we're watching how Abaddon and is launching his crusade to be able to find and capture the sword. Sigismund is standing in his way, and a returning fleet of like one of his rivals comes in and is going to decide to mess things up. So a lot to take in. But yeah, anyway, let's just dive on in and see what this is all about, okay? Yeah, the first battle of Cadia. And from what I understand, it's just a fleet battle basically, whereas there wasn't that much stuff going on beforehand. But I'm guessing later down the line is when it gets beefed up, basically. So here we go.
Seven centuries after the end of the Horus heresy, the galaxy burns once again. The former first captain of the Lunar Wolves, Ezekiel Abaddon, has vowed to bring the Imperium of Man to its knees. In order to cement his position as the new ruler of all Chaos forces, he must first claim the demon sword Draknyen. After making a terrible sacrifice, Abaddon has finally managed to exit the Eye of Terror. His trials, however, are far from over. To continue his quest, Abaddon must triumph over two mighty foes, High Marshal Sigismund of the Black Templars and the Chaos Sorcerer Darovec of the Legion Host. You probably don't need us to tell you that Dragon Age is a franchise in the classic Dungeons & Dragons vein, so you might well be hitting the tabletop before you return to Thedas. To help you with that, we recommend our sponsor Shard Tabletop, a virtual tabletop program for managing everything to do with your Dungeons & Dragons games. For players, it will visualize the tabletop situation, automate your character sheets, do all the long-winded rules checks instantly, and it manages useful data like hit points, areas of effect, and temporary abilities. For Game Masters, it takes the complex task of running the whole experience and makes it seamless and easy. The built-in campaign manager lets you set up the world, maps, encounters, characters, and all the good stuff your players will have to deal with. If you need more stuff, you can either homebrew whatever you want, or quickly hit the marketplace to download loads of useful resources. Shard Tabletop is free, but you can also subscribe from $19.99 a year to get a load of extra professionally made content included for your campaigns, which also adds extra free content from the marketplace. You can run it on any device, it comes with pre-made starter adventures to try, and again, it's free to use. Even better, we've got a special deal for you. Try a 3-month Game Master subscription to Shard Tabletop absolutely free by using our link in the description. After 700 years of relative peace, Loyalist and traitor Astartes were slaughtering each other once more in the cold void of space. Long had High Marshal Sigismund warned the High Lords of Terror of the inevitable return of the Chaos forces. His warnings, however, had fallen on deaf ears. Taking what ships he could spare, the High Marshal took it upon himself to set a blockade near the Cadian Gate. His vigilance paid off. Abaddon's Black Legion emerged from the Eye of Terror in the 781st year of the 31st millennium. Thus began the First Battle of Cadia. Despite heroic Loyalist resistance, the Black Legion seemed poised to break the blockade. After a daring boarding action on the enemy flagship, Abaddon managed to cut his way to Sigismund himself. The two former first captains began a duel long in the making. It was at this crucial tipping point that a third party unexpectedly entered the fray. Darovec, Lord of the Legion Host, had emerged from the Eye. The Black Legion was now trapped between two enemy forces. The Legion Host was battered and bruised after their near-suicidal trek through the warp storms. Despite this, Darovec's persistence and sorcerous prowess had paid off. Abaddon's fleet would never be able to disengage in time to meet this new threat. All Darovec had to do was attack head-on. The Black Legion fleet would be annihilated, and the Black Templars would soon follow. If the Legion host could capitalize on their momentum, Darovec stood to achieve complete and total victory. A decision needed to be taken immediately to avert disaster. Abaddon, however, was deeply enmeshed in combat within the Eternal Crusader. His duel with Sigismund raged more violently than ever, and there was no way for the Lord of the Black Legion to extricate himself and regain his flagship. Command of the fleet thus fell to the sorcerer Iskander Khayon. Abaddon had wisely left him aboard the Vengeful Spirit, where he could survey the Void War. Every second counted. Darovek's fleet would be within range in a handful of minutes. Iskander contacted his brothers aboard the Eternal Crusader. It was imperative for the Black Legion to regroup as soon as possible. If their forces remained separated, defeat was all but guaranteed. Darovek's fleet was already making contact with Abaddon's rearmost elements. Vulnerable and precious troop transports were annihilated in the blink of an eye. A few more moments, and the heart of the Black Legion fleet would be cut to pieces. Yet this impending tactical disaster was lost upon Abaddon and Sigismund. Both fighters were oblivious to the destruction around them. Aboard the Black Templar flagship, the duel was coming to its conclusion. The aged Sigismund was tiring with every blow. His century-old instincts brought him to one inescapable conclusion. In order to claim Abaddon's life, he would have to lay down his own. Waiting for an opening, the High Marshal of the Black Templars baited his enemy, banking on Ezekiel's rage to be his undoing. When he finally found his opportunity, the Son of Dawn did not hesitate. The black sword darted forward, burying itself in Abaddon's chest. The blow was masterful. Ezekiel fell to his knees, his body a ruin of torn flesh and ravaged organs. Any other Astartes would have perished from such a wound. Abaddon, however, would not let anything get between him and his destiny. Now face to face with the High Marshal, Ezekiel lifted the Talon of Horus, bringing it down upon his opponent's waist. The same weapon that had killed 2 Primarchs and wounded the Emperor unto death bit deep into Sigismund's flesh, splitting the old warrior in 2. Sigismund fell to the ground, blood and gore painting the floor of the Eternal Crusader. Despite their wounds, both warriors were still alive. Sigismund reached for the hilt of his sword, still buried in his enemy's torso. No matter the cost, the former Imperial Fist would carry on the fight for as long as he could. Abaddon knelt over his foe. With uncharacteristic gentleness and affection, Ezekiel begged his former brother to finally rest. The fight was over. Sigismund had failed. Abaddon would rise again and lead his Black Legion across the worlds of the Imperium. The only thing he lamented was that Sigismund could not see the truth and join him. The High Marshal drew upon the last remnants of his strength. With calm and certitude born of centuries of service, Sigismund uttered words that would stay with Abaddon for the rest of his life. "You will die as your weakling father died, soulless, honorless, weeping, ashamed." With this final curse, the High Marshal of the Black Templars went to the Emperor. His duty was finally at an end. Abaddon fell upon the deck, finally overcome by his life-threatening wounds. His warriors rushed to his side. Time was of the essence. Unless the Lord of the Black Legion received immediate medical attention, he would surely perish. Across the void of the Cadian Gate, the Black Legion was dying. Yet before Iskander could make a tactical decision, the Vengeful Spirit's abominable intelligence took the initiative. The massive bulk of the Gloriana battleship suddenly launched itself across the void, straight towards the Eternal Crusader. Drunk on blood and pain, the machine spirit lost all thought of self-preservation. There was only one goal in her maddened mind: save the Lord of the Black Legion. So furious was her charge that the artificial gravity within the vessel rose to 40 times that of Terra. Hundreds of mortal crew members perished in an instant, their bones and organs pulverized by the massive rise in G-force. Even the Astartes aboard the flagship struggled to recover. It took all of Iskandar's will and might to rein in the Vengeful Spirit from this tactical blunder. Every fibre of her artificial being was screaming to retrieve the boarding party aboard the Eternal Crusader and finish off the enemy flagship. The situation, however, was beyond desperate. Messages from frantic ship captains blared across the Vox channels. The same question was on the lips of every Black Legion commander. What were they to do? Iskander could not contact his wounded master for answers. It fell to him to either save or doom his brothers through his actions. After weighing his options, the Chaos Lord finally gave his orders. Engaging either enemy force would result in an inevitable defeat. The Black Legion fleet was to scatter across the stars as quickly as each individual captain could manage. The only ship that would remain behind to cover the retreat was the Vengeful Spirit herself. Eschewing all forms of cohesion, the Black Legion punched through the Black Templar fleet wherever they could. dozens of vessels perished, either under Loyalist fire or from activating their warp drives without adequate preparation so close to the eye. While incredibly costly, Iskandar's decisive orders saved the bulk of Abaddon's fleet. The sorcerer pointed the vengeful spirit towards Darovek's armada. Another vessel would have to keep the Eternal Crusader away from the fleeing Chaos vessels and retrieve the boarding party within. This dangerous honor went to Valikar Hain, captain of the heavy cruiser Thane. The Eternal Crusader was all but gutted, yet a Gloriana-class battleship is a lethal threat even when crippled. The Thane fired everything it had against the enemy vessel, taking inordinate punishment in return. Valikar launched his fighters to cover the returning boarding pods. Aboard one of them lay the heavily wounded Abaddon. Despite taking heavy damage, the Thane succeeded in its mission. The Lord of the Black Legion was safe, though the Eternal Crusader would live to fight another day. Despite what their reputation might suggest, the Black Templars were not suicidal zealots. Aware that their depleted numbers could never stand against Darovek, the Loyalist forces began to withdraw in good order. Though every captain of the fleet yearned to avenge High Marshal Sigismund, their duty was to the Imperium first and their chapter second. The Black Templars made for the nearest Mandeville point where they could safely engage their warp drives. While they had failed to prevent the Chaos forces from exiting the Eye, they could still give warning to the rest of the Imperium. Sigismund's sacrifice would not be in vain. Meanwhile, the Legion host continued its assault. Darovek led the charge aboard his flagship, the Domina. The carnage amongst the Black Legion troop transports was immense. With every passing second, Abaddon was losing irreplaceable ships and manpower. Yet Iskandar's gamble paid off. From across the decks of their ships, Darovek's captains could see the vengeful spirit charging at them unescorted. This was an opportunity no Chaos warband could ignore. Capturing a Gloriana-class battleship was the ultimate spoil of war. Unfortunately for Darovek, his fleet was still reeling from their destructive voyage through the warp. Each ship's crew was disoriented after entering real space for the first time in centuries. Cohesion was breaking apart, and taking on the vengeful spirit was a far cry from annihilating defenseless transport vessels. Iskandar drew himself close enough to cover the troop transports as they made their escape. Knowing full well the enemy meant to board and capture his ship, he obliged them. He ordered the vengeful spirit to draw close to the Domina. His plan was as simple as the circumstances allowed. He would entice Darovek to board his ship and kill the Lord of the Legion host in single combat. Darovek took the bait. Hundreds of boarding pods were launched from the Domina. Burying themselves deep within the flanks of the vengeful spirit, they disgorged hundreds of Astartes and thousands of thralls within the decks of the ancient vessel. Iskandar took control of the repelling action and started hunting for his target. Space Marines were created by the Emperor of Mankind to fight his wars across the stars. Yet even the transhuman mind of an Astartes can easily get confused in the chaos of space combat. Void War is both grand and minuscule in its scope. For a ship captain or fleet master, the scale is truly immense. Yet for a deckhand or a boarder, the entire war is narrowed down to a maze of claustrophobic corridors. Boarding actions are a matter of both attrition and guerrilla warfare. The fighting is so uncoordinated that its participants often have no idea how the battle is unfolding. Such was the massacre within the corridors of the vengeful spirit that the Neverborn lurking beyond the veil sang their approval. Yet these were not the sanctified halls of the Eternal Crusader. The bowels of the Black Legion flagship were a nightmare of warp mutation. After centuries within the Immaterium, entire sections of the ship had degenerated into demonic biospheres, willing and able to slaughter friend or foe alike. Some parts were too hostile even for the Black Legion Astartes, who often had to fight their own ship as well as Darovek's boarding parties. The fight degenerated into a chaotic mess. Breaches were opened, repelled, closed, and opened again. Reserve troops were bidden to intervene across a maze of passageways that spanned kilometers. The defenders used the butchered bodies of the slain to create makeshift barricades, while the boarders used melter charges to create new openings from where they could flank their foes. Iskandar himself fought wherever the fighting was thickest. No mercy was given by either side. Wounded men were devoured by the ship itself, dragged into gaping mouths on the walls or into dark corners where demons lurked. Whole generations of mutants rose out of the forgotten holds they called home, lashing out at anything they could find. Neverborn emerged from the corpses of the fallen, birthed by the scale of the slaughter taking place. Amid the carnage, Darovec stood, exalted. His axe rose and fell, killing Black Legionnaires with every swing. As he slew, the Lord of the Legion host bellowed for Abaddon to come and face him. Iskander had no interest in informing Darovec of his master's whereabouts. Grasping at his blade, he charged at the Chaos Lord. Iskander's sword met Darovec's axe. For the second time during the First Battle of Cadia, a duel of champions took place on the decks of a stricken flagship. Darovec used his warpcraft to try and dominate his opponent's mind. The duel turned from a martial to a psychic one. Both sorcerers fought for control of each other's souls. With a supreme effort, Iskander finally managed to gain the advantage. Ripping apart his opponent's hold over him, Kion delivered one final blow with his blade. The power sword clove through Darovec's axe, splitting it in two. Continuing its arc, the weapon sliced the Chaos Lord's arm in two and buried itself into his neck. The last word Darovec muttered before his head rolled on the floor was Draknien. With the death of their lord, the Borders were quickly routed and repelled. Having snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, Iskander ordered the vengeful spirit to finally withdraw. Darovec might be dead, but his fleet still posed an insurmountable threat. Linking with the Thane, Abaddon's flagship made for the deep void of space, putting as much distance between her and her pursuers as possible. Thus ended the First Battle of Cadia. The first bloody chapter of the Long War was at an end. 3 fleets lay in ruins, and 2 champions lay dead. It would take time for the Black Legion to regroup its strength after their flight. For now, at least, they had lived to fight another day. Abaddon was immediately retransferred to his flagship, where he was taken to the Apothecarium. His wounds were too severe for standard procedures. The Lord of the Black Legion was placed within an amniotic tank, where he could recover. Only the members of the Ezekarian were allowed to visit him, upon pain of death. Sigismund had struck a truly mighty blow. Many of Abaddon's organs were shattered and would need to be cloned and replaced. Despite their Pyrrhic victory, Ezekiel's close circle of advisors were troubled. Sigismund and Darovec might be dead, but the myth of Abaddon's invincibility had been badly damaged. Reputation was everything within the ranks of the Chaos Astartes. A decision was thus taken. None could know of how close Sigismund had come to claiming Abaddon's life. 11 Black Legionnaires remained of the 30 that had witnessed the duel between Abaddon and the High Marshal. Iskander Kion slaughtered each and every one of them to ensure total secrecy, marking the final victims of the First Battle of Cadia. Despite the current state of his fleet and the terrible wounds raking his body, Abaddon was ecstatic. This was an opportunity like no other. With the flight of the Black Templars, the Imperium was sure to return in force. This would force all Chaos warbands, including the remnants of Darovec's fleet, to cooperate against a common foe. Abaddon would threaten, bribe or coerce every single Chaos fleet in the material realm to join his forces. The first Black Crusade would not be a petty raid across a handful of solar systems, it would be a war of total destruction, waged across the entire Segmentum Obscurus. Thus, while the forces of the Emperor were busy putting out the myriad fires lit by the heretic Astartes, Abaddon would be free to hunt for the secret prize of his campaign, the demon sword Draknien. History was in the making, and Abaddon wished to mark the moment. After all, the start of the Long War needed to be properly announced to the entire galaxy. Ezekiel had the perfect messenger to deliver the news to the weakling High Lords of Terror. Sigismund had one final role to play. The High Marshal was laid with all honours upon the deck of a captured Black Templar ship. Abaddon himself wiped the blood off Sigismund's chin and placed his black sword upon his chest. The Black Legion made sure to fill the vessel with all available data on the First Battle of Cadia. The ship was also given a crew of servitors and terrified thralls to navigate it back to the throne world. After several days of travelling through the warp, the messenger ship would arrive safely at its destination. The innumerable defences of the solar system identified it well before it could reach Holy Terra itself. Boarding parties were immediately dispatched to neutralise the trespasser. Loyalist troops entered the ship and began clearing its halls. Taking no chances with potential Chaos corruption, the many servitors and thralls left inside by the Black Legion were mercilessly butchered. Finally, the Loyalists made it to the deck of the ship, where the ravaged corpse of Sigismund lay. Approaching it cautiously, the boarders could make out 3 words engraved upon the Templar's black blade: "We are returned." Our series on the Black Crusade will soon continue. To make sure you don't miss it, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.
Oh boy. It's so nuts to me how we see these like even in the midst of battle, the two Chaos Warband sides, they were just, you follow me or I'm going to destroy you sort of situation. And the Black Legionnaires had no choice but to flee and scatter. So no doubt they scattered remnants are all across the galaxy in the Imperium, and they'll just be doing their own personal raids on isolated worlds, stretching the Imperium to its maximum, to its max, and then for it's so crazy to me that the 11 remaining Chaos guys ended up getting killed because they knew of what happened to Abaddon, and the lieutenants are like, we have no choice, we gotta keep up an image, and no doubt it worked. And now we just finally get to see what comes next for Abaddon, how he manages to get the sword, and the continuation of the other Crusades, which now at this point the Imperium knows when they got Sigismund's back, which is surprising. Like I said, it's just a surprise that these two warriors still had some honor left. He still had honor left to return the body to Terra. And I'm wondering what about that black sword. I wonder if the sword's still around even to this day, or is being used by another captain or something like that. But anyway, man, this is a crazy series. I really enjoy the battles and the visualization. It gives you a good sense of like how things worked out in the end. And yeah, I props to Wizards and Warriors for being able to do this. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you had a good time reacting with me. I'll catch you in the next one. I'll put a link for Wizards and Warriors, something random over here. Just subscribe button right about here. And in the description, the original link to the original video. And I'll see you again soon. So Romans, salute.
If you like Romans content and wish to see more, like and subscribe to continue to support the channel.